My cousins and I, we have a saying that we are daughters of a revolution. What does that mean? Our parents came over here fleeing from the Sandinista Revolution. My uncles fought in the war. It was a shattering of dreams. What basically ended up happening, that you're up there in the mountains for God knows how many months, how many, fights you have to go through, and you come home and it's nothing what you imagined it to be. So it's my generation who basically picked up on these shattered dreams, who grew up listening to stories about, when they were fighting. One of the stories that my mom told that really stuck with me is that one of my uncles was hiding an informant, somebody who would go around telling the other sectors what was going on. They were hiding him in the house, and there was a guardia outside. And my mom looked at the guardia, who was, part of the national police, and she had never been so scared in her life, because had they found out that they were hiding somebody in the house, they would have all been killed. So these are the stories that we grew up listening to. These are stories that molded our experiences and molded our passions. My cousins and I, we've had these discussions before, what it means to have that legacy of a revolution, what it means to have to carry a burden, in a sense, of how are my children going to, in a sense, react to Nicaragua? How, in a sense, am I going to be able to carry these voices back to my other generations? Who else is going to tell my mother's story? Who else is going to know how my Tío Frank lost his finger while he was up in the mountains because a bullet missed his head, but instead went for his hand and he lost his ring finger? Who's going to even know that he lost the finger? And that's a really big, for me at least, a really big worry. I don't want these stories to get lost. Looking back at the stories now, I'm having the before and the after. Before I was really quiet, I listened to stories, but there's a difference between listening and internalizing and doing an action because of these stories. So, when I was younger, I would listen and in my head I'd be yeah. And whenever, I'd see something going on in school that I thought necessarily was wrong, or whenever I heard comments that were completely off based, in my head I'd be you're wrong. But it would never really come out into an action. I didn't do something. And that is the worst thing, the bystander effect, when you don't do something. So as I grew older and I started internalizing these stories more and more, and I started realizing what the power that these stories have, and the power that our voices have, and the power that we all have to basically say, hey, you want to know what? Let's do this, or let's start an action. Let's start a movement. It molded me more and more. I was talking to somebody really very recently, and she told me, sometimes you have to play by the system's games. And I go, no, you don't. No, you don't. You start off a movement. You don't have to sit there and within the parameters that certain people certain people set up, advocate it. You can go outside these boundaries, and that's why you have certain things called revolutions and other movements. So this legacy, being a daughter of a revolution, having to listen to all these stories and having multiple voices ingrained into me, into my being, into what is Yareliz, has inspired me to advocate for my people, because I know that some way, somehow, I'm going to impact somebody else, impact somebody who might have been going through what I was going through, listening to other stories as well, but not knowing really how to do anything about it. Or maybe I can inspire somebody else to go out and to fight and be hey, you want to know what? I'm on the fence about this issue, but I'm going to be in solidarity with others and go forth. And basically, it's a crazy idea, but change the world.